at phonics features found in the letter name or the within word stage of word study. This is one of the reasons I love this class record sheet that Kathy Gansky shares, because it so clearly shows us the phonics continuum. So let's take a look at what might be a typical week in word study for those children in the letter name or within word stage of word study. As I mentioned last week, I love to give open sorts to each word study group. And in answer to some of your questions, I do tend to find that these follow my homogeneous guided reading groups. But I have seen teachers be very successful with just using word study groups for the first 10 or 15 minutes in the morning. And then follow-up work can be done independently during that guided reading time. So let's take a look at day one. As I mentioned before, I love the open sorts, and I think Kathy Gansky may call them the blind sorts. And this lets children sort in any way that they see fit. This gives me a little picture or window into their minds. I can look at children and say, are they focused on semantics? Do they look at phonics? Do they use visual cues? So I often jot down these kinds of notes as it helps me understand how best to teach to that child's strength. And by the way, I do have some guidelines to help make sorting easier, particularly in the younger grades. I find that when children follow a certain procedure, it helps them to concentrate on the objective. So I usually give children a sheet of paper and have the partners sort words and always keep them on the paper. This helps those little pieces of paper from falling on the floor and getting lost. And to scaffold, I often gave clues after I observed. For example, I might say, this time let's try sorting into 3 columns, or let's try listening to the middle sound. And to keep sorting fun, which many of you mentioned, and I'm so glad you're into motivating our children, I celebrate lots of great ideas. For example, I might use a big hand clapper like that to go, yay, you thought of something great. I might give a round of applause. Or sometimes I even put on my extra big glasses and look at how things got sorted. They never know what I'm going to do, and I think this generates a lot of excitement. Well, let's imagine that on day one, we have a small word study group that needs to look at the other common long vowel patterns. So I may give them a sort with a lot of different long A features, and I'll put this sort up on our site. But essentially, these might be children who know the A consonant, silent E rule, and they're also going to look at the AI, which also makes long A, the AY at the end of a word or syllable, which makes long A, or the EIGH, which also says long A. So they're going to sort, see these different letter patterns for long A. After they sort and they discover the feature, they can copy their sort into their word study notebook. Sometimes for younger children who are sorting with pictures, I have them actually glue the sort into their word study notebook. And that's day one. Day two, I have children, again, sort their words. If they haven't glued them in, it's really helpful because then they can use that same sort. If they have glued them in, I have them just look at them and say the names of the pictures. And then I have them write the different patterns in their word study notebook. So in our long A, they would write A consonant E, A-I, A-Y, and E-I-G-H. And then I may ask them to choose a few words and use these words in sentences, or else draw pictures and caption their pictures. That would be day 2. Moving on to day 3, I really want to get my children involved in authentic texts, and I may use some of the books or materials that I'm using in guided reading. And I like to send them on word hunts. So if they're looking for that target feature of, say, AI or AY, they look in their book and they find words that show this feature. And in their word study notebook, they would then write down the actual words they found. This gets us away from just memorizing lists of words. They see that this pattern can be found in any number of words, which I think is very helpful. So then in day 4, I like to get children into playing some of those wonderful games that Kathy Gansky suggests in the text, and I hope you take a look at those. Now, this can be labor intensive for teachers to make these folder games. I suggest if you have families who volunteer, give them directions and let those families help you make the games. Sometimes high school students need volunteer hours. Letting those high school students make folder games for you is beneficial for you too. We teachers need to save time where we can. Now, for those of you with interactive whiteboards, you can also have some of your word study groups on day 4 using the interactive whiteboard to sort or to even find words in a text on the whiteboard. Sometimes I like to give students at this point shaving cream where they can write their words. And I know some teachers like to use shaving cream on the tables or desks, but sometimes I worry about the mess, so I use a cookie sheet to keep it self-contained. I also tend to use baggies that I have taped together very well at the top and filled with hair gel. Children can then write the words that illustrate the target features for the week on the hair gel. Then in day 5 is the assessment portion of the week. And this is helpful because it's getting away from that giving children the spelling list on Monday, having them memorize the words, write them on Friday, and then oftentimes forget them the following week. You have really taught a phonics and spelling feature and let children make discoveries about this feature and find it in authentic texts. So when you dictate your words to your small group on Friday or day 5, I suggest adding a couple of words that they may not have encountered during the week. For example, if you're looking at the long A consonant silent E pattern, you may want to give the word graze. Children may not have seen or written the word during the week, but that's okay because according to our phonics continuum, they are held responsible for that GR blend, which was back in letter name. They now know that A consonant silent E pattern. So, and they certainly know the sound of Z, which was back in letter name. So it's okay to give them words that they have not encountered during the week as long as they follow that pattern you have been studying. And I think that's one of the very helpful components of word study. I know Kathy Gansky has a lot of other wonderful ideas for you, but I just thought it might be helpful for you to hear this overview. Thanks a lot.